like a Shaq type player instead of him like handling the ball um, for a good chunk of time. But that's something that Coach Bud has to kind of adjust to, and I just don't think he'll make those adjustments. But hello and welcome to the Monday, January 25th edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Hope you all are all doing fantastic on this Monday, and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. But before we start, I have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other awesome content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. That would be highly appreciated to help the growth of the channel. For all the podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple. Remember, DM me a screenshot if you guys, leave a review on something. I'll definitely give you a shout out. And for, the Spotify, Anchor, Podbean listeners, just continue to show your support in any way possible. That would be highly appreciated. I have a great show lineup for you today. We have some NBA news. And also since we are 1 month into the season, I'm going to be doing, a buying and selling segment on today's show where I'm going to tell you what players and teams you should buy on and what teams you should kind of, hold your brakes on and what you should kind of be selling. It's kind of like a quarterly report if you want to put it that way. But yeah, we have an action-packed show for you guys. Obviously, we're going to have the power rankings and also the game of the week. But yeah, today's going to be an awesome episode, so let's get right into it. And the first topic we're going to be discussing is a record that has been broken. Well, not really a record, but this guy climbed up the rankings in probably one of the most impressive categories in the league. And I'm going to be talking about Steph Curry. Over the weekend, during the Utah Jazz game, Steph Curry moved into number 2 all-time in three-pointers made, passing Reggie Miller. It was a classic Steph 3. He was doing his little dribble moves, pulled up from behind the screen, hit the shot, and then as he was running back on defense, he was throwing up the 31. To shout out Reggie Miller because he just passed him in the all-time three-pointers made list. Yeah, that was a great achievement. Steph Curry, one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time. Don't want to discredit the Jazz, though. They absolutely smacked the Golden State Warriors that game by, I believe, 20+. And we're going to be getting into the Jazz a bit more later. But, they've been playing absolutely awesome, the Jazz. But Steph Curry, kind of overshadowed the event, sadly. But he's just amazing. He's just absolutely amazing. And what I find absolutely just crazy about, Steph and what he's doing is just like how quickly he's getting there. Reggie Miller played just under 1,400 games in his career and hit a total of 2,563s. I mean, it has to do with the era. That's still highly impressive, but Reggie Miller, less than 2 threes a game. Ray Allen, just over 2 threes a game, playing 1,300 games and hitting 2,973 threes. And Steph is at 2,562 in 762 games. That is near half less, maybe just over 50%, less games than the other two guys, which is absolutely crazy. And obviously, I'm not disregarding, this is the era where people shoot threes like crazy and stuff like that. But let's be honest. One, he is the greatest shooter of all time. I think that is almost non-debatable at this point. But he revolutionized the game of basketball. And this is why, back in, the summer last year, I was doing my top 10 all-time players list. I think I had them 10 or 9, maybe just outside the top 10. I think I had him 9, but I think, looking back at it, I maybe should have put him just outside the top 10. But he's just so influential to the game. And if you just look at the league averages when the Warriors were on the come up and started, going through this, 3-point heavy scheme, I mean, just throughout, the 2000s and the early 2010s, they were consistently, near 18, maybe even less threes per game. If you, really look at the statistics, I mean, it was, back in the mid-2000s, it was, near, 16 a game. And then around 2012, it was at 18. So not much difference. But just look at this climb. Like, as the Warriors were ascending, as Steph Curry was becoming the player he was, you could just tell the influence he's had on the game. Like, 2013, the first time it eclipsed 23s a game. Then it went to 21, then 22, 24, 27, and we keep going up to the 2020-21 season where teams are averaging 35 a game. 35. And like, this is happening. Like, if you look at the start of last decade, we were at 18. The league was at 18 threes attempted per game. And now we move on to this year, they're averaging 35 threes a game. And is there any coincidence that this was on the come up during the Steph Curry era? No, it isn't. The Warriors, and what I always just like to talk about to people is like how influential Steph was. If you look at his shots, and I think a lot of people can attribute this like who have played on basketball teams, like, in high school and elementary, such as myself. You can look at those, right, and talk about how, when you're in practice, when you're in games, if you try to take what Steph Curry is doing in these games, in your high school games, your elementary games, you're getting pulled out. Coaches hate that stuff, especially when back then, when I think I was playing when I was in 2013, 2014, coaches would hate if you take those type of shots. And now it's encouraged, just because people have realized threes are better than twos, and those are what kind of switched the balance of the game, which is absolutely crazy. Just because Steph was hitting ridiculous three. I mean, you could just see a full highlight of Steph's 3-point shooting. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I also don't want to attribute to Steph. I know a lot of this has to also do with Mike D'Antoni's philosophy as he, grew as a coach. But Steph was the one who made this clear that a three is better than a two, and if you master your craft at the three, you can be, a valuable piece. This just started a chain of events where the prototypical center, you need to have shooting threes now. It's almost a deterrent to have a center, kind of in the past, a Shaq, not like a Shaq because he's extremely dominant. Just an example, such as a Kendrick Perkins, who had a role just for being a big body. People like Roy Hibbert. Those big men are almost obsolete. And then you have these centers like Brook Lopez. You have centers like Karl-Anthony Towns, who are attempting over 3-4 threes a game. And this was almost unheard of in the 2000s, and dating all the way back. And I think just Steph started this chain reaction. And you can just tell how influential he was. Just looking at if you really just want to look at his just pure shooting, total shooting. Firstly, he's averaging over his career 43% from three. That is phenomenal. And then when you look at the 3-pointers made, he had over 400 threes in the season, man. He's just that good, and he's gonna pass this list in what, in my opinion, 2 years. And I think by the end of next year, we could definitely see a possibility where Steph has eclipsed that record. I truly believe that, and he's just gonna keep going. Whether you have him top 10, whether you have him just outside your top 10, Steph Curry is just extremely influential. And he's such a great player, and this is his legacy. He's just the way he changed the game, and you just cannot give him enough credit. He is just that good of a player, and it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy to see how big the gap is at the end of his career from number 2 and number 1, because that is going to be extremely interesting. Let's move on to this. The team that actually beat the Warriors over the weekend during that, during Steph Curry's historic night, was the Utah Jazz. And I haven't been talking about them much, just because they're kind of a low-key team. They didn't really make many moves. You just kind of know what you're getting from them. I've compared them in the past, to the Pacers of the West. Just, have the same chemistry, have the same core, and they just grow together and they just play well together. Well, the Utah Jazz are sitting number 3 in the West right now, just under the 2 LA teams, I think, only by half a game. And they've been rolling. They have won 8 straight games. And what I see just different about this team is kind of the way they go about things. Last year, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, it was a lot of inside stuff. the Utah Jazz were just playing, really good basketball. They have a top, whatever defense. I think this year they are number third, just as they always are. That's what happens when you have Rudy Gobert on your team. It's just gonna continue to be good. But what is different about this team compared to last year? And I think like a reason why they're doing so well is just the amount of threes they're hitting. And you're probably thinking like how much different could this like really get? But the Jazz are number one in 3-point field goals made, and they're also I think number 2 or number 3 in percentage. This is like what's different about the Utah Jazz this year. They're looking at themselves and they're just like, look, we are not like, Donovan Mitchell loves to take those those mid-range twos and stuff like that. But now they're just like, okay, in order for us to like really take ourselves to the next level, they're gonna have to go with the times and like attempt to shoot the 3-ball more. And they're doing it at like a very high rate. They're 4th in effective field goal percentage, 7th in true shooting percentage. Like they're just playing fantastic. Number 1 in rebounding. They're just having a fantastic season. And you could just tell like how good their offense has been. This is tied for their best. Like their offensive rating right now is 114.3. This tied for number 1 in their team's history at the moment. They're just playing absolutely phenomenal. Obviously led by Donovan Mitchell, who I'm going to go a bit too later about his situation with Shaq. But they're just getting lots of good contributions. 24 points a game for Mitchell this year. Mike Conley is looking like the Mike Conley of old from the Memphis Grizzlies days. And they have the arguable, 6th man of the year in Jordan Clarkson, scoring 17 points a game. Obviously, you could make the argument again this year, Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. They're just playing absolutely fantastic. They are. And it's just crazy to see the jump they've made. And like I said, the way they're shooting threes is just like at a high rate, a franchise high. Their 3-point percentage at a franchise high. They're just breaking records of their own franchise just continuously, and they're playing fantastic. And it's not like they've been just scrubs. I mean, they've beat the Nuggets, they've beat the Warriors, they've beat the Bucks. They've beaten good teams, and they're actually looking like a legitimate threat. Now, I don't think they're gonna actually make it far. I think this maybe will slow down a bit, but like the Pacers out east, and I've talked about them in the past, people be sleeping on the Jazz. They really do be, and they got to start giving the Jazz a lot more credit. Speaking of the Jazz, this situation kind of happened last week. It was a big talking point, so I decided to hold off because I had that interview with Jeff from from Sports Me on Friday. You should definitely go check that episode out. But I didn't get a chance to give my thoughts on the Shaq situation. If you guys did not know, after the Jazz had a pretty big win last week, Donovan Mitchell had his post-game interview with TNT, and kind of a bit more context to it. During halftime, Shaq and Charles Barkley were basically in agreement saying that Donovan Mitchell is an all-star level player, but he'll never be a superstar because he doesn't, if he doesn't score, he doesn't do enough, for his team. And there's an argument there. But what a lot of people were kind of pissed about, people like Kevin Durant and LeBron James also voiced their concerns. It's kind of like the way he went about it after the game. So Shaq, talked to Donovan Mitchell, obviously, because they were doing the interview, and he asked him, he was basically saying, I said this to you about halftime. I don't think you're ever going to be the lead player. And he basically said, what do you think of that? And Donovan Mitchell was like, that's all he really said. And he's like, and he basically went on to say, look, I've been doubted my whole life. I mean, you're just no different than everyone else. And that's fair. I mean, Donovan Mitchell have I think another career year. He is playing absolutely phenomenal. His career high averages in points per game, career high averages in assists. It's just been a steady growth for Donovan Mitchell, and he's just continuing to do so. And a lot of people have been kind of arguing, whether this is is just another type of old guy hating, or is this kind of supposed to motivate him? And I can see it both ways. I think Shaq at the moment meant well, but I think just the whole like Shaq persona, the way he kind of like doesn't really take his job seriously on TNT. He's more of that fun guy. Um, he's not as analytical as Kenny Smith or like he doesn't like watch games as intently as like a Kenny Smith or an Ernie Johnson. You can tell Shaq is there kind of more for comedic relief on the show, especially because he has that rivalry with Charles Barkley. And I think like Shaq, and just in general, is just like I think I've mentioned this in the past, like when I was talking, like because this is not his first incident with a Utah Jazz player. He had that whole issue with Rudy Gobert like a few weeks ago. When he got the big money. I think at this point, the way Shaq and other people, like especially like from that old era, kind of look at today's game, is just not fair. And I've mentioned this in the past. I've already talked about it. I've voiced my 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 reasons I really didn't like how Shaq was caring about things, just because he doesn't really watch the game. He doesn't really support it. You could tell like with his beef with just current big men, and now going into Spider Mitchell. I mean, they're on a freaking like what at the time like a 6-game, 7-game winning streak. They're playing the best basketball like ever since Donovan Mitchell got there, and you're really putting him down like that. Like it's kind of unnecessary. And like, what were you expecting? What were you expecting? I'm gonna get better. Well, Donovan Mitchell, firstly, he is one of the best scorers in the league, but he's slowly like getting there. He is in his 4th year. Remember that he hasn't even like sniffed his prime yet. Like there's more to see from Donovan Mitchell, and he's just like working on his game all the time. And I think he knows that he needs to like work on that. I think he knows that, and he's gonna become more like than just a scorer. He's gonna do like more than that. And Shaq just honestly just like looks like the way, and it's mostly because he's Shaq. The way like he's like talks about today's game and stuff, saying, "Oh, back then he wouldn't do like this or that." It's just the way Shaq is. And I think like maybe like if I was looking at someone like maybe like a Larry Bird, maybe like a Magic Johnson, you could see it as more like as a mentor type type thing. But with Shaq, you honestly can't really tell if he's trying to help out or if he's hating. Because he does a lot of hating, let's be completely honest. Even people like Christian Wood have said, like in interviews with him, you're a casual. You really don't know like what's going on. If you don't know about me, you don't know about this. But it is what it is. I know Donovan Mitchell's going to continue to get better. He's going to like bring himself higher in those, on those top shooting guard lists. Even like in the play like in those like top player lists, he's going to be up there soon. He's just getting started, and when it's go time, you can trust Donovan Mitchell, especially in the playoffs. He's proven a lot like he can play well, and just the growth he has throughout his career, you can tell he's just going to continue to get better. So yeah, I mean, just way Shaq is going about things is like I don't particularly agree with, but at the same time, I just know that Donovan Mitchell's going to get better. So let's just hope for that. Before we head into the buying and selling segment, I'm going to hit you with some other news and updates. Kevin Porter Jr. Last week I really didn't mention this, but he had a incident with the Cleveland Cavaliers. After they traded for Taurean Prince, they gave him his locker so he can kind of be around the near the veterans. And Kevin Porter Jr. was kind of pissed. He threw his soup at the locker, and he kind of like started berating the organization and stuff. And they were basically saying, look, he's acting out like this, we're either going to release him or he's going to get traded. He ended up getting traded to the Houston Rockets for a protected second-round pick in 2021. Heavily protected. They're probably not even going to get it, the Cleveland Cavaliers, but the Houston Rockets end up getting Kevin Porter Jr. I like this trade for him just because it's a low-risk, high-reward. I mean, you just give up a second-round pick protected, and they're probably not going to even lose it. And you end up getting a guy who has had, a pretty solid rookie season. If you guys remember before the season, I was talking about like some of the players I actually like I'm pretty high on the Cavs. Kevin Porter Jr. was near the top of that list. I mean, last year 10 points a game, doesn't seem too impressive, but he had his moments. He definitely had his moments. And I think the Houston Rockets going with this youth movement, bringing in Christian Wood and stuff like that, you can see Kevin Porter getting some minutes and actually succeeding. So hopefully he does well there. Karis LeVert, an update on him. He may require surgery on his kidney to avoid further complications. So, I'm just glad, this trade. Honestly, I'm just glad this trade happened and they realized this so he can get work done. So, yeah, he's going to get surgery on his kidney. And I think the Pacers are hoping to get him back maybe 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a bit longer. But, hopefully it goes well and Karis LeVert can get back on the court. And then CJ McCollum, I believe I talked about how he got kind of mini injured last week and he was going to miss about a week. Well, now he's going to miss a month because I think he has like some sprain in his foot. And now the Blazers are missing him and Nurkic for a while. And so Damon's going to have to, go like kind of ham this like next month or so to try and keep the Blazers afloat. I believe right now they sit fourth in the West at with a 9-6 record. Let's see if the Blazers are going to be able to keep it up. But yeah, there's that. And now we're going to go into the buying and selling segment of today's show. We are 1 month into the NBA season, basically a quarter in. And I'm just going to be basically telling you, some players, some storylines, some teams that you should actually be like kind of buying in stock for, or you should be kind of like, selling. I mean, like don't buy into the hype and stuff like that. So yeah, I have 6 topics here. I'm going to be kind of discussing them in depth. And, after all this, leave it down below in the comment section of this, the Instagram comments, or whatever you need to do, and see if you kind of agree or disagree with me. So yeah, let's get right into this. And then I'm going to start with a buy. I'm going to start being positive. If you're going to buy stock in someone, you got to buy stock in my man, Gordon Hayward. Right now, he had kind of had like a small falling out with the Boston Celtics. His role was like reduced to a 4th guy on a championship contender, and it felt like we weren't getting the best of Gordon Hayward. Well, this year he is showing us, glimpses of what he was able to do in Utah when he was an All-Star. So far this year, he's having career high averages in points, career high averages in steals. Actually, no, he's tied for that. And he's just playing extremely well for a Charlotte Hornets team who, let's be honest, are kind of, in the mix for even at least a play-in spot. And he's playing absolutely fantastic. And I think you should really buy in on him because a lot of people, when he was with the Boston Celtics especially, kind of forgot that Gordon Hayward could be like that guy on a team. I mean, obviously he had that horrible injury in his first season with them. And then, like, the most he had, like, kind of in one season with the Celtics was last season, started 52 games and only averaged 17 points a game. And, being with that team for a long time, people were thinking, especially because he got this big contract from the Hornets, whether he was going to be that guy because he is long removed for that. Obviously, he had the injury. And, he just didn't have great, chances in Boston. Now he's on a Hornets team where he's the number 1 guy. And if you missed, I think it was last night. I mean, everyone was watching NFL games, but he hit a game winner last night as well to help down the. I believe they beat the Orlando Magic. Yes. So yeah, I mean, he's playing absolutely fantastic. You should definitely buy into him. He's finally getting his opportunity, and he's he's kind of like one of those veterans in a group of young guys. Obviously, with Rozier, Devontae Graham, LaMelo Ball. And he's kind of that steady hand that the Hornets needed for this team because there's a lot of uncertainty, especially with those young guys. And he's putting into work. He's doing absolutely fantastic. I'm happy for him to see him bounce back. And I'm telling you, man, buy into his stock. He is shooting 43% from 3, 51% from the field, 87% from the free throw line. Close to that 50-40-90, but he is playing absolutely fantastic. Definitely buy stock into Gordon Hayward. And a player I'm selling on, and if I'm going with one player that I'm selling on, I'm not selling on him because of the player, but most importantly his MVP chances, and that is Joel Embiid. I mean, obviously he is. If the season ended today, he would be MVP. He would have my vote. But what we've learned about Joel Embiid, and this is my thing with the 76ers, you're never gonna. I'm gonna look straight into the camera. 76ers, you're not gonna get me this time. You're not. Because right now they sit number 1 in the East. They are, I believe, 12-5, and I think they're doing absolutely fantastic this year. But there's always gonna be those little nagging injuries with Embiid. There's gonna be a period where the 76ers are kind of struggling, and Embiid is not fully in it. Like, I am not buying into this. I hope he proves me wrong, but I'm just not buying into this. last year, if you guys were listening last year, I had Embiid winning MVP, Brett Brown winning Coach of the Year, the 76ers going to the finals, and that all blew up in my face. Like, I've been trying to believe in this team for the last 2-3 years, and they've always fell short of my expectations. Now, when the 76ers are doing absolutely fantastic, I'm not falling for it because there's always something with, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, whether it's injuries, whether it's just, not finding the motivation to play as hard as you do. And that's what I'm just hoping for Joel Embiid. If he can, maintain this for the season and stay in MVP conversations, you know what? I'll be gladly proven wrong. But I just cannot trust that right now, even if we're a quarter way into the season. If Embiid can continue this play, I'll completely say I'm wrong. But I just cannot believe. I just can't buy in. I just can't buy in. If you think Embiid's gonna do this for a season, I'm telling you to sell now, because Embiid has done this to us so many times. I mean, he is a top center in the league. I still have Jokic slightly ahead of him just because how much he his play impacts the Nuggets. Embiid, if he could do his full season, he'll pass Jokic. He'll pass Jokic for me. But this is a small stretch, and Embiid just needs to do more for me. I mean, he's playing fantastic, best year of his career. But can he maintain this? 27 points, 28 points per game, basically, almost 12 rebounds. He's playing fantastic, but can he maintain it? I just can't buy into it. So, whether take my advice or not, but just kind of sell your stock on Joel Embiid right now before he goes into that little mini slump as he always does. Speaking of Nikola Jokic, a team you should buy on right now is the Denver Nuggets. Because they struggled early on in the season, obviously trying to find their footing. But quietly, they've gone on a 3-game winning streak. Nikola Jokic playing absolutely fantastic, averaging 26 points a game, 9.6 assists, 12 rebounds. And, they're starting to find their footing. Jamal Murray still hasn't really kind of breaking out, but he's slowly but surely getting there. And with Michael Porter coming back very soon, I mean, I think he actually came back yesterday against the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, 14 points, 11 rebounds. But once they start getting it going, once they start finding their flow, they're going to be near the top of the West. Now they're going to fall short of my 60-12 that I predicted before the season. But I think they'll still play excellent basketball and kind of be a top 4 seed in the West. Obviously, they still need defensive help and stuff like that. I believe they're still near the bottom on defense. If not, they kind of improved a bit. Yeah, they're up to 21, which is better than what I think it was 30 near the beginning of the season. But you just gotta you gotta buy into them now. They're gonna start rolling, and I really do think that this team will not be a contender, but I think they're just right below that list. With the Clippers, the Bucks, the Nets, and all that. They're kind of just a tier below that. And I think if they can find their footing on the defensive end, become more average and keep the high offensive rating up, because right now they're third, I think they could definitely still be have a surprise run like they did last year. So buy into them now because they definitely started off slow, but you definitely should get into it as they're starting to get their roll on. A team you should be selling your stock on though is the Memphis Grizzlies. They're a fun, hardworking team. I mean, what I was really impressed with was how they handled themselves when Ja Morant was injured. They still kept themselves afloat, and right now they sit 6th in the West. But this is not sustainable. I mean, the second best defense in the league, I think that'll kind of come back down to earth a little bit. And their offense is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. I mean, Ja's going to do his thing. I mean, so far this year, he's actually playing pretty well. 22 points a game, 7 assists, 2 rebounds. Mind you, only 5 games, but still, he's having a good start to this to his year. And they at least don't know when Jaren Jackson's coming back. And can these guys just continue their high level of play? Because they're getting stuff from Kyle Anderson. They're getting stuff from Brandon Clark, Dylan Brooks, Valanciunas, and actually it's just good players, getting some good contributions off the bench from players we haven't even heard of, and Desmond Bane. I think it's Xavier Tillman. Can they keep this up? And in a loaded West, I don't think they can. Because they're just teams kind of behind them that haven't fully figured it out yet. But I think we'll just surpass them. When the Phoenix Suns, they had a fast start, kind of slowed down. The Golden State Warriors still have to figure out some things. The Dallas Mavericks, Luka's gonna turn up at some point. And there's just too many the West is just too stacked. I'm sorry, they're just not a playoff team. Yes, they play on the defensive end, but their offense is just clearly not good enough. And I think in the West, you kind of have to at least have average one end and elite in the other. And that's just not what the Memphis Grizzlies have. So if I'm you guys, sell your stock in the Memphis Grizzlies because I just do not think this type of play is sustainable. A team you should definitely buy on, though, is the Miami Heat. Right now, they sit 13th in the East. It doesn't look too great. 6-9 start to the season. But they've been heavily injured. Tyler Hero has his neck issues. We haven't seen much of Jimmy Butler because, I think he was in the COVID-19 protocol. And he kind of had a slow start to the season. But they still play hard. They still have, Bam Adebayo. They still have, these guys playing at a, decent level. Obviously not at that finals level. But I trust the culture. And when it really matters, when they really need to turn up, I think they're gonna just they're gonna turn up. I mean, we haven't seen the best of Jimmy Butler. We haven't seen the best of Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo is having a great start to the season. He had a career high game against in the game they lost to the New Jersey, but oh my god, I said New Jersey, the Brooklyn Nets. And he's having a fantastic season himself. 20 points a game, 9 rebounds. They're just trying to figure stuff out. And once they get healthy, once they have their guys back, I really do believe that Heat culture is going to settle in again. And they're going to be back to where they were. I mean, 4th, 5th seed, and just fighting hard in the playoffs. They'll get there eventually. They just need to get healthy. And I think when everyone's kind of down on them right now, especially with all these injuries, you should definitely buy stock in them. One of the most injury-riddled teams in basketball. They just need to get healthy. Compared to these other teams where they kind of have their own little flaws here and there. The only thing for Miami Heat is get healthy, and I think stuff will kind of repair itself. So you should definitely buy your stock in some Miami Heat. And a team you should definitely sell on right now is the New Orleans Pelicans. A lot of people were kind of high on this team, hopefully getting a full year of Zion, and maybe we can see some improvement in this team. There just isn't. Right now they sit, 20th in the league in offensive rating, 23rd in the league in defensive rating. They're just not a good team. And one of the things I could proudly say that I kind of predicted what would hinder them is their three-point shooting, because they're just horrible. They're just absolutely horrible. Right now they're 29th in makes at under 10 a game, and they're bottom 3 in percentage, 33% a game. They just do not have the roster to fit a Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. Because when you have players like Eric Bledsoe, who is a good player, but when you have him paired up next to Lonzo Ball, it just kind of doesn't work like that. JJ Redick has had a horrendous start to this year, only scoring 30% from 3. And Zion is getting his numbers, 23 points a game, 8 rebounds, same thing with Brandon Ingram. But there's just not enough spacing on that court. It just doesn't work. And like I said, these are my concerns before the season. And they're just coming to fruition. I don't think they're going to get near a play-in game even this year, just because they just can't, they're going to keep getting them twos. They're going to keep getting them stats for their 2 top guys. But the other guys are just not going to, get their full potential because the paint is clogged. They just cannot, and they're not good at shooting threes. I mean, except against the Raptors. I mean, apparently Eric Bledsoe turns into freaking Steph Curry against the Raptors. But when you have Lonzo Ball shooting 29% from 3, JJ Redick 30%, and not much, shooting off the bench. I mean, Nico Melli, who was supposed to be their stretch 4, is averaging 1.6 points a game, under 20% from 3. He's struggled so far this season. So, I mean, as much as we want to see Zion do well, as much as you want to see, this team improve, they just need to rework their roster. The roster is just not it. And whether that's trading Lonzo Ball, which he's been in a lot of rumors as of late, whether it's trading Eric Bledsoe, just to get more shooting on the court, they just got to do something. They just got to do something because this team is just not it if they're trying to improve. And this team is just not it. Too much base clogging the paint. I mean, if anything, they should be getting all the rebounds. And I don't even think they're near the top in that. Actually, they're the top 10, so they're still pretty good. But they just do not, the ball movement isn't there. And they're just not playing well on either side of the ball, really. So they got to address that 3-point shooting need. I mean, hopefully JJ Redick can at least go back to his good 3-point shooting, but this team is just not good. This team is just not good, and the fit is just not there. So, anyone who still kind of believes in the Hornets on the Pelicans, you definitely should sell your stock now. But yeah, there's that. Agree or disagree? Leave it down in the comment section below. Who are you buying? Who are you selling on? If you agree with that, shoot me a DM as well. I do not mind talking basketball. But now we have reached kind of near the end of the show segments, and obviously we got the power rankings. We got the game of the night, the game of the week. So, let's get right into this. Some changes in this week's power rankings. If you've seen it on my Instagram already, you've seen the list, and now I'm just giving you kind of a quick rundown as to why I put them there. I'm going to try to be quick with it just because I don't want to go too long with this, but yeah, we're going to definitely, this one's going to be kind of interesting because we have one new team in here. A team dropped out. I was very tempted to put them in, but they've had kind of a rough stretch of games. And that is the Phoenix Suns. He dropped out, and we have a new team coming in. So, yeah, let's get right into this. Let's start off at number 10. We have the Indiana Pacers. They dropped a couple of spots from last week because they kind of had a rough week. Yesterday, especially, they had that loss to the Toronto Raptors without Kyle Lowry, without Pascal Siakam. And Sabonis got locked down. Brogdon had a horrible game. And they were close in it, but at the same time, the Raptors' defense just completely shut down their two top guys. And they weren't able to pull out the win. But I think there's still kind of hope for them. They're still fourth in the East. And they just barely stayed in this week's top 10. Coming at number 9, we have the Portland Trailblazers. Right now sitting at 9-6. Obviously, losing McCollum and Nurkic is bad, but they're still trying to keep the ship afloat. Right now sitting 4th in the West. Dame balled out against New York yesterday, 39 points in that game. Although they almost gave it up, I thought the Knicks had a chance there near the end, but the Trailblazers were able to hold on, sealing the free throws. And I just can imagine, over these next few weeks, when McCollum and Nurkic are out, that Dame is just going to go ham. And I'm hoping to see that just because Dame hasn't really had, hasn't really been standing out this year. And I think during the stretch, he'll definitely start to stand out. So, at number 9, I have the Portland Trailblazers. Coming at number 8, and back into the top 10 they go, we have the Denver Nuggets. Like I said earlier, 5th in the West. They are in a 3-game winning streak at the moment. And Jokic is playing at an MVP level. They finally got Michael Porter Jr. back. I think this is going to be a start of a stretch of just good play from this team. I really still do think they need to kind of work on stuff on the defensive end. Maybe get a trade somewhere there. I mean, they do have a plethora of guards, so hopefully they can work out something there. But they're playing really good right now, and they've gotten themselves back in the top 10. Coming at number 7, a team that has dropped a few spots, we have the Brooklyn Nets. The big three all have had their games and stuff like that. They've all been been playing pretty well. I mean, besides that one game from James Harden where he kind of struggled from the field. But their defense is a problem. Their rebounding is definitely a problem. I mean, they got destroyed by Bam Adebayo in that game. And they were destroyed by Drummond in the games against the Cavs where they lost 2 straight. But they're still trying to figure things out. And I'm just not worried about them. When you have kind of the 2 best players in the East, along with maybe a top 5 player in the East, and just like that, those 3 guys together, they'll figure it out eventually. But I'm still waiting to see what they're going to do with those 5 empty roster spots, if they're still going to make trades. So, yeah, I mean, it was a rough week for them for sure, but I'm not too worried, and I think I only dropped them a couple of spots. Coming in at number 6, we have the Boston Celtics. Kind of a rough week for them as well. They haven't, they definitely have missed Tatum because he had the COVID-19 issues. Prior to last night's win against the Cleveland Cavaliers, they've had a 3-game losing streak. But I think when Tatum comes back, which is hopefully tonight, which has been reported, I think they'll get back into this. I just have to drop them a couple spots. But there's no doubt in my mind that they can definitely creep back up in this list. So at number 6, I have the Boston Celtics. Coming in at number 5, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, they had a pretty big win yesterday against the Atlanta Hawks, but they've had some rough losses, especially those close losses to the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Lakers. they definitely have some problems on that team. Giannis's free throw woes have been a massive problem this year. Same as him like shooting a bunch of jump shots. He should definitely start to get back into the paint. And if you guys have listened to my TikTok and stuff, I've talked about how I think the Bucks should be using Giannis differently, maybe as kind of like a Shaq type player instead of him like handling the ball for a good chunk of time. But that's something that Coach Bud has to kind of adjust to, and I just don't think he'll make those adjustments. But I think that would be fine in the regular season. Probably be 1 or 2 seed in the East, but come playoff time, I think that is something that Mike Budenholzer should kind of look into. But he hasn't done it in the past, so what makes you think he's going to do it now? So right now they're at number 5. I think they'll definitely get back up, but I just think that that the way that they're using Giannis is going to definitely like hinder them in the playoffs in the future. Coming in number 4, a team who has jumped up a couple of spaces on this list, we got the Utah Jazz. I've went into depth about them earlier. 8-game winning streak. They're just playing. They're shooting awesome from the 3, and they just have this roster playing at an extremely high level. Really like to have going there in Utah. They are at number 4. Coming in at number 3, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. They reclaimed the number 1 seed in the East. Embiid playing at an MVP level. I still don't think he's gonna get the MVP, but he's playing absolutely fantastic right now. And they're just playing at a top level when like all these other guys are kind of struggling, especially in the East. The 76ers have got their form back, especially because they had those COVID issues like a week or 2 ago. Good to see that happening. They're at number 3. Coming in at number 2 is a team I haven't mentioned at all this episode, the Los Angeles Clippers. Right now they sit number 1 in the West with a 13-4 record, quietly having a 7-game winning streak, and that's a good thing. The LA Clippers last year, they put themselves in the headlines. They're like, oh, we're going to win the championship and stuff like that. We are your favorites. But, they obviously fell flat on their faces against the Denver Nuggets. Now, coming into this season, they've actually had an extremely good start, a quarter in, and they're on a 7-game winning streak. No one's talking about it. That's exactly the way they should be handling the situation. Just, they shouldn't be really, bringing attention to themselves and just continually just trying to improve as a team. Paul George, awesome start to the season. Obviously, we have to see if he could do that in the playoffs. And also Kawhi Leonard, another great year to start off. The bench is starting to finally find its groove as well, so hopefully they get that sorted. But right now, I have them 2nd in the West. And coming in at number 1, no surprise, they haven't moved from number 1 at all this season, and they're still staying there. The Los Angeles Lakers still at number 1, 8-2 in their last 10 games. They've honestly just looked like the best team in the league, and there's not much to say. LeBron playing at a near MVP level. Anthony Davis finally starting to break out of his shell, having a season high night a couple of days ago against the Bulls. None of this really matters, and they're coasting. They look like they're coasting, and they're still number 1 in the league. So it's the Lakers being the Lakers. I have them at number 1. But yeah, that's my power rankings. Again, agree or disagree, leave it down below. I would love to debate you guys in the comment section. But before we end up today's episode, we got to do the game of the week. I lost on the weekend. If you check my Instagram post, I thought the Thunder was going to cover the plus 13.5 spread. Or I think it was plus 13. But they lost by 14. Oh. So I'm 4-6 right now. Not a great start to the season. But this week's game of the week is going to be a fun one. We have the Dallas Mavericks versus the Denver Nuggets tonight, 8:30 Eastern. Obviously, the battle of the 2 young international superstars and Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic. The Nuggets are plus 2 in this game, and I'm going to give it to them. They're kind of rolling right now. The Mavs are still kind of have their issues trying to get all their players back. And I think that they're going to, with Michael Porter Jr. there as well, coming back for the Nuggets, and the Mavs not really having that guy to defend him, I expect them to have a big game. And I think the Nuggets, will just come out with the victory here. So I'm going to give them the plus 2. I'm riding the hot hand with the Denver Nuggets. And if they win this game, they're probably going to be in the top 4 in the West. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, the Mavericks can definitely win, obviously, with Luka and stuff like that. But I will give this to the Nuggets. So yeah, agree or disagree, leave it down below. Hopefully I can get back to that 500 record soon because, yeah, been a rough start for Game of the Week for me, so I definitely need this win. But I think this is where we're going to end it. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for other great content. I'm going to be back on Wednesday with another great episode. I may or may not have a guest this Friday, so you should definitely just still check it out. I think I have a great show lined up for you for then, whether it's by myself or with a guest. And yeah, just thank you guys for so much support. So far this year, we eclipsed 200 downloads, which is absolutely crazy, and this is only the first month. So yeah, just thank you so much for the continuous growth on the podcast, and I'm excited to give you just more NBA content just throughout the year. Also, I didn't mention this earlier, follow me on TikTok @TV on Basketball for just daily NBA recaps that I post there every single day because those have been really fun. But yeah, again, thank you guys for so much for all your support. Hope you all have a fantastic day. TV signing out. Peace.